The Shield is back, but not the way you think. Roman Reigns just returned to SmackDown like a storm, and he didn't come alone. After months off the grid, the tribal chief stepped back into his yard, but instead of acknowledging the Bloodline, he dropped a bomb no one saw coming, a mystery Shield member. Not Rollins. Not Ambrose. Someone new. Who is it? Why now? And what does this mean for the future of WWE? If you thought the Shield was dead, think again. Roman Reigns returned to SmackDown, and the entire WWE universe stood still. It wasn't just the music. It wasn't just the walk, the slow, confident strut down the ramp with that signature mix of royalty and menace. It was the energy. The kind of energy that says, something is about to break. And it did. But it wasn't what anyone expected. No Bloodline. No Usos. No Paul Heyman. Instead, Roman dropped a name. A face. A legacy. The Shield. Except this time, it wasn't Rollins. It wasn't Ambrose. It wasn't the trio we thought we'd buried years ago in WWE's ever-turning story machine. No. Roman introduced a new member. A mystery figure who stepped out of the shadows and into history, just as the tribal chief made his return. The crowd didn't know how to react, shock, nostalgia, betrayal, all tangled into one explosive moment. And just like that, the narrative changed. The question now isn't just, who is the new Shield member? It's why now? What's Roman's endgame? And how does this rewrite everything we thought we knew about the Shield, and WWE itself? This is more than a comeback. This is war. Let's rewind. For nearly a decade, Roman Reigns has been a mainstay in WWE. First, as the powerhouse of the Shield, the silent assassin behind the chaos. Then as the polarizing solo star WWE kept pushing down fans' throats. And finally, as the tribal chief, the cold-blooded leader of the Bloodline, ruling SmackDown like a mob boss in a tailored vest. But then, he vanished. Disappearing after WrestleMania 40, Roman took a leave of absence that WWE never fully explained. Injury? Burnout? Creative pause? Rumors flew faster than Twitter notifications. Some said he was nursing a real injury. Others said it was all part of a long-term storyline. A few even whispered retirement. Meanwhile, SmackDown moved on. Kind of. Solo Sikoa rose. Jimmy and Jay fell apart. Paul Heyman looked like he was managing a crumbling empire. Without its leader, the Bloodline lost its aura. The fans could feel it. The locker room could feel it. Even the camera shots felt empty, like everyone was waiting for something. Or someone. Then the rumors started. Roman's coming back. No, he's done. Roman vs. Cody 3 is in the works. Roman's returning with a faction. We all thought we knew what was coming. We were wrong. WWE isn't just a wrestling company. It's a machine that runs on moments. Carefully timed, emotionally engineered, often explosive moments. Roman's return wasn't just a moment. It was the moment. A calculated strike. And he didn't come back to rejoin the Bloodline. He came back to flip the table. Let's talk about what makes this moment different. Because this wasn't a nostalgia trip. Roman didn't pull up old Shield footage and give us a promo about brotherhood. This wasn't a tribute. It was a power move. By invoking the Shield and introducing a new member, Roman reclaimed a part of his history WWE thought was sealed in the vault. He didn't resurrect the Shield to honor the past. He did it to rewrite it. Think about that. Roman isn't just back. He's realigning with his roots, but on his own terms. He's repackaging the Shield, one of WWE's most iconic stables, not as a reunion, but as a reboot. And rebooting something as sacred as the Shield? That takes guts. Or madness. Maybe both. But make no mistake, this wasn't a desperate move. Roman didn't return because he missed the spotlight. He returned to take control of it. Here's what's confirmed. Roman Reigns is back on SmackDown. He is not rejoining the Bloodline. He introduced a new Shield member, identity still being dissected across social media, forums, and Reddit threads. WWE is marketing this as the rebirth of the Shield, but the details are tightly guarded. Rollins and Moxley, formerly Dean Ambrose, were not part of the return segment. Now let's break down what that means. The Shield was originally built around equality. 3 men. 3 roles. A tactical unit. That's gone now. This version? Roman's at the top. He's not a soldier anymore, he's the general. Whoever this new member is, they're being presented as a weapon, not a partner. It's not a reunion. It's a restructuring. There's an old saying in wrestling, nothing stays dead forever. And in WWE, that's gospel. The Shield disbanded years ago, but the storylines that came from it, the betrayals, the reunions, the rivalries, never fully closed. Seth Rollins may have smashed the group with a steel chair, but Roman and Dean kept finding themselves orbiting each other's worlds. WrestleMania matches. Surprise saves. Glimpses of what was. And now? Now Roman's using that unfinished business as a weapon. Not nostalgia. Narrative warfare. He's not looking backward. He's using the Shield to do something new. To challenge the existing order in WWE. To say, I don't need the Bloodline. I built something before them. And I can build it again. Better. Stronger. Mine. But here's the real twist, if Roman is bringing back the Shield, what's he shielding himself from? This video is going to take you deep into the comeback that rocked WWE. Here's what's coming next, a full play-by-play breakdown of Roman's return to SmackDown, and the exact moment the audience knew something was off. Every known detail about the mystery Shield member, from backstage rumors to leaked training footage. Analysis of how this move affects the Bloodline, Seth Rollins, and the entire WWE roster. The biggest fan theories you need to know, some of which might blow the roof off this whole thing. And finally, we'll reveal the potential real reason behind Roman's return, and why it might not just be about titles or legacy. It might be about revenge. This isn't just another wrestling segment. It's the start of a storyline that could redefine WWE for years to come. You think the Shield was over? Think again. Roman Reigns wasn't always the face of WWE. In fact, there was a time when fans rejected him. Loudly. Week after week. They booed him out of arenas. Not because he wasn't talented, but because they felt he was being forced down their throats. WWE was telling them who their next hero should be, and the crowd wanted a say. But Roman didn't fold. He absorbed it, endured it, and then, eventually, he flipped the entire narrative on its head. To understand the magnitude of his return to SmackDown, you have to understand the evolution of Roman Reigns. The man didn't just make a comeback. He made a statement. A declaration. And it's one that's been 10 years in the making. Roman's real name is Lady Joseph Anoa'i, a member of the famed Anoa'i wrestling family. From the moment he stepped into a WWE ring, expectations were sky high. With family ties to legends like The Rock, Yokozuna, Rikishi, and the Wild Samoans, Roman was never going to be just another guy. WWE saw him as a future cornerstone. But that kind of pressure isn't always a blessing. His official WWE debut came in 2012, as part of the Shield alongside Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. They were positioned as a tactical strike unit, 3 men in black, crashing into matches unannounced and demolishing everyone in their path. Their entrance through the crowd, their silent confidence, their pack mentality, it was magnetic. Fans bought in fast. But even then, Roman stood out. Taller. Stronger. Quieter. He was the enforcer. the closer. While Ambrose ran his mouth and Rollins flew from the ropes, Roman was the fist that ended the fight. WWE took note. And when the Shield split in 2014, it was clear where the company was placing its bets. Roman was pushed into the main event scene almost immediately. He won the 2015 Royal Rumble to a chorus of boos, despite technically being the face in the match. Even The Rock, who tried to raise his cousin's hand in victory, couldn't save the moment. The fans weren't rejecting Roman the performer. They were rejecting Roman the product. Over the next several years, WWE doubled down. Roman headlined multiple WrestleManias. He faced off against legends like Triple H, Brock Lesnar, and The Undertaker. He won titles, main events, and accolades. But the crowd's reaction stayed mixed. Every time his music hit, the arena split into cheers and jeers. Half love, half resistance. It was an identity crisis in real time. And then, everything changed. In October 2018, Roman Reigns stood in the ring on Monday Night Raw and did something no one saw coming. He broke character. Dropped the act. Looked straight into the camera and told the world he had leukemia. It was real. Not a storyline. Not a promo. It was raw truth. In that moment, the boos stopped. Fans saw the man behind the character. The fighter. The father. The human. And when he returned just a few months later with the cancer in remission, the reception was completely different. The crowd welcomed him back, not because WWE told them to, but because they wanted to. For the first time, the audience saw Roman Reigns as one of their own. But WWE, as always, had bigger plans. By 2020, Roman had stepped away again, this time due to COVID-19 concerns. When he returned at SummerSlam that August, something was different. The look in his eyes. The confidence in his movements. He wasn't the old Roman anymore. He was sharper. More dangerous. And soon, Paul Heyman appeared by his side. This wasn't just a heel turn. It was a transformation. Roman Reigns became the tribal chief, a cold, calculated, power-obsessed monarch of the squared circle. He didn't scream to get attention. He whispered. He didn't beg for respect. He demanded it. And people listened. The bloodline followed. First, Jey Uso was brought under control. Then Jimmy. Then Solo Sikoa. Roman used mind games, fear, loyalty, and manipulation to control his family and dominate SmackDown. His title reign became historic. His matches were must-see. Every entrance, every promo, every feud, purposeful and unpredictable. But dominance has a cost. The longer Roman held power, the more fragile it became. Jey rebelled. Jimmy wavered. Sami Zayn infiltrated the family, then blew it up from within. Cody Rhodes nearly dethroned him at WrestleMania 39. Even Paul Heyman started to look rattled at times. The cracks were forming. By the time WrestleMania 40 rolled around, the bloodline was in chaos. Roman faced Cody again in the main event. This time, he lost. Clean. No excuses. The Empire had fallen. And then, Roman disappeared. WWE went silent on his status. No official injury report. No suspension storyline. No farewell speech. Just gone. Off TV. Off the radar. Fans waited. Hoped. Speculated. Some said he was healing, physically and mentally. Others thought WWE was giving him a well-earned break. But underneath all that, there was one truth no one could ignore: Roman Reigns doesn't vanish without a plan. And that's exactly what made his return on SmackDown so explosive. When his music hit, the crowd erupted. The camera panned to the entrance ramp, and there he was, black shirt, gold gauntlet, steel-eyed and calm. But what stood out wasn't what he said first. It was what he didn't say. No mention of the bloodline. No acknowledgement of Cody. No claim to reclaim his title. Instead, Roman smiled. And then, he said one word that hit like a thunderclap. Shield. The crowd froze. A mixture of gasps and cheers. He didn't elaborate immediately. Just paused, soaking in the electricity. Then he explained. He wasn't coming back to be part of the Bloodline. He was coming back to finish what he started a decade ago. And this time, he wasn't looking to rebuild old friendships. He was assembling something new. Something deadlier. The Shield wasn't dead. It had just evolved. And as the lights dimmed and a figure appeared behind him, hooded, silent, unfamiliar, the realization sank in. Roman Reigns wasn't returning to reclaim a throne. He was here to flip the chessboard. The man who had once been the workhorse of the Shield had now become its architect. And he was holding the blueprint to a whole new era. This isn't the same Roman. This isn't the same WWE. And whatever's coming next, it's not going to follow the rules. Roman Reigns is back. But this time, he's the one holding the leash. And we're just getting started. When a dominant champion disappears, everything changes. Roman Reigns wasn't just a title holder. He was the gravitational center of SmackDown. For over 3 years, every storyline, every rivalry, every backstage whisper revolved around him. He dictated the pace of the show. He was the final boss, the man everyone had to answer to. But when WrestleMania 40 ended with Cody Rhodes holding both titles above his head and Roman lying flat in the ring, something more than a championship reign ended. A power vacuum opened. And WWE had to move fast to fill it. Roman's absence wasn't publicly explained. There was no storyline injury, no dramatic send-off, no kayfabe excuse. One night he was the most dominant force in WWE. The next, he was gone. And just like that, SmackDown was left to rebuild itself from the rubble of the Bloodline's collapse. At first, it looked like Solo Sikoa might take the reins. He had the aura. The quiet violence. The mystery. The kind of presence that makes people look twice when he walks into a room. And WWE leaned into that. In the weeks following Roman's exit, Solo began operating like a man on a mission. He was brutal in the ring. Stone-faced during promos. He didn't talk, he made statements. And then came the twist, the Bloodline wasn't just fractured. It was evolving. Solo began surrounding himself with new allies. Paul Heyman looked nervous. And the message was clear, Solo wasn't preserving Roman's legacy. He was replacing it. At the same time, Cody Rhodes stepped into the spotlight. Having finally finished the story, Cody became the undisputed WWE champion. He traveled between brands, defended the title, and carried himself with a sense of destiny. But despite the gold on his shoulder, fans couldn't help but wonder, was he truly the top guy, or just keeping the throne warm until Roman returned? SmackDown, meanwhile, began to feel like a show without a sheriff. The structure Roman had enforced through fear and loyalty was gone. Feuds broke out with no center of gravity. LA Knight was rising, but lacked consistent direction. Kevin Owens, always volatile, bounced between grudges. Logan Paul hovered in and out of title scenes, more attraction than anchor. There was action. There was talent. But there was no center. Without Roman, the show lost its ritual. Gone were the slow, deliberate entrances with Heyman clutching belts and narrating legacy. Gone were the tense stare-downs where Roman didn't speak for minutes at a time. Gone was the psychological warfare that made even contract signings feel dangerous. In its place was something faster, more chaotic, but undeniably less focused. And then there was the question of the Bloodline itself. After WrestleMania, cracks turned into canyons. The Usos, once the twin pillars of Roman's empire, had been torn apart. Jay had left the family entirely. Jimmy was trying to rebuild a sense of purpose. And Solo? He was clearly playing by his own rules. At first, fans thought Roman would return to fix things. Instead, the silence grew louder. Every week he didn't appear became a question mark. Was he injured? Burned out? Was this storyline, or was it real? The lack of answers only made his shadow stretch longer. WWE hinted at him. Commentators dropped his name. Superstars invoked him during promos. But the man himself remained unseen. And yet, Roman's absence didn't weaken his presence. It magnified it. Because everything that happened was still measured against him. Cody's run was constantly compared to Roman's dominance. Every promo that called someone the face of WWE felt like a placeholder. And the Bloodline storyline, even as it splintered into new directions, still carried his fingerprints. Roman didn't just leave a storyline. He left a void. And no one, not Cody, not Solo, not even the full might of WWE creative, could truly fill it. But that didn't mean the company stood still. Behind the scenes, WWE began shifting gears. Without Roman to anchor long-term storytelling on SmackDown, creative focus began diversifying. More attention was given to the women's division. Stars like Tiffany Stratton, Bayley, and Bianca Belair gained screen time and stakes. Mid-card feuds were given more depth. Championships began moving more frequently. The pace changed. And yet, every change only made one thing clearer: they were buying time. The longer Roman stayed away, the more it felt like they were waiting. Waiting for the next act. Waiting for the final chapter. Waiting for something, or someone, to step in and carry the weight of the show the way he had. And then the rumors started. Small things. Whispers. Grainy leaked photos. Roman spotted at WWE HQ. Creative team working on major return angle. New faction being tested at live events. Reddit threads exploded. Twitter debated every inch of it. YouTubers created full-length videos speculating on what Roman's return would look like, and when it would happen. But nobody predicted what actually happened. Because when Roman returned, he didn't rejoin the Bloodline. He didn't challenge Cody Rhodes. He didn't even mention the world title. He said one word. Shield. And just like that, everything reset. Roman didn't come back to reclaim the story. He came back to change it. He looked at the landscape WWE had built in his absence. Chaotic, decentralized, grasping for narrative, and made a choice. He wasn't going to plug back into the machine. He was going to rewire it. And that brings us to the moment of impact. Roman's return isn't just the continuation of a long reign. It's a rebuke. To the Bloodline. To the current WWE ecosystem. To the idea that the company could truly move on without him. In his absence, SmackDown survived. But now that he's back, it's going to kneel. It started with silence. Not actual silence, but the kind of collective hush that happens when an audience senses something coming, something big. The kind of silence that overtakes thousands of people at once, where you can almost hear the sound of held breath. SmackDown was nearing the end of the second hour. Cody Rhodes had just cut a promo about legacy and challenges. Paul Heyman had made a brief, vague appearance backstage earlier. There was no real signal. No advance announcement. And yet, the camera lingered on the commentary team for just a moment too long. Michael Cole shifted his tone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting word of something major. Then, the screen cut to black. 1 second. 2. Then a single beat of percussion. Boom. 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 The crowd exploded. Roman Reigns' music hit, still the same orchestral war theme that had become his sonic signature since adopting the tribal chief persona. Slow, haunting, powerful. It didn't blare. It arrived. The sound of something inevitable. The lights dimmed. The camera panned back to the entrance, smoke curling just beneath the LED screens. and then, through it, walked Roman Reigns. Black t-shirt. Black slacks. Hair wet. Glove on one hand. Microphone in the other. No entourage. No Paul Heyman. No Usos. No Solo. The shot held on his face as he looked out over the sea of people, half in disbelief, half in awe. Roman didn't smirk. He didn't grimace. He stood there, still, his expression unreadable. And then he walked. Slow. Purposeful. Every step heavy with intent. Michael Cole's voice, hushed but urgent, echoed over the visual. We haven't seen Roman Reigns since WrestleMania. We weren't told he'd be here tonight. What is he doing here, and why is he alone? That question echoed through the arena. It echoed through Twitter. It echoed through living rooms across the country. Because Roman Reigns doesn't do anything alone. Not anymore. Not since the Bloodline. He stepped into the ring. Took the mic. And let the crowd chant. They didn't know what to chant. Roman. Tribal Chief. You suck. It was all a mess of sound, of excitement and confusion colliding. He waited for it to die down. Not by force. By presence. And then he spoke. You missed me. One line. 5 seconds. Immediate reaction. Then came the monologue. No yelling. No ranting. Just controlled, lethal cadence. Roman spoke with the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing you're the axis everything turns on. He acknowledged the crowd, briefly. He acknowledged Cody Rhodes, barely. But then, he turned his attention to what he called unfinished business. This ring was mine before the Bloodline. This company was mine before you started cheering. You think the story ended at WrestleMania? You think the final chapter's been written? You think I'm here to pick up pieces? A pause. The crowd waited. I'm not here for the Bloodline. I'm here to finish what I started, with the Shield. The arena popped. Audibly. Confused. Electrified. Some gasped. Others cheered wildly. Others looked to their friends as if to say, did he really just say that? Roman let the moment breathe. He stood in the middle of the ring, eyes scanning the crowd like a king watching his court squirm. He knew what they were thinking. Where's Rollins? Where's Ambrose? Why now? He went on. This isn't about reunions. This isn't about memories. This is about evolution. We were soldiers. Now I'm the general. And this shield, it's mine. Then he pointed to the stage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the screen cut to black again. Another beat. The Shield's original theme hit, remixed, darker, slower. Not nostalgic. Ominous. And from the tunnel, a new figure emerged. Hood up. Black vest. Gloves. Same silhouette, same style, but this wasn't Dean Ambrose. This wasn't Seth Rollins. This was someone else. You couldn't see the face at first. The lights behind him made it impossible. He moved like Roman did in 2013. Calm. Lethal. Silent. As he stepped forward, the camera caught a glimpse, young, intense, unknown to many in the crowd. Some cheered out of instinct. Others booed, thinking it was a tease. Still others just stared, trying to figure out who this person was. Roman didn't say his name. He just smiled. And then he said, "Meet the future." The man entered the ring and stood behind Roman, no handshake, no fist bump. Just presence. Like he'd always been there. Like he belonged. The crowd reaction was a storm of confusion and awe. On commentary, Wade Barrett said what everyone was thinking, this isn't a reunion. This is a reset. Roman continued. The Shield was never 3 men. It was never about friendship. It was about dominance. Control. Impact. We were the spear. Now we're the hammer. And I don't need nostalgia. I need results. At that moment, the lights flickered, deliberately. And on the Titantron, 3 words appeared in white block letters. Shield Reborn. Then everything went dark again. When the lights came up, Roman and the new figure were gone. The commentators were stunned. The crowd buzzed. And social media erupted. Within minutes, #Shield Reborn was trending worldwide. Fans flooded Twitter with theories. Who is that guy? Is this Roman turning on the Bloodline? Is Seth involved in this? Was this guy from NXT? Shield vs. Bloodline at SummerSlam? Even WWE's official social accounts played coy, posting only one photo. Roman, back turned to the camera, walking up the ramp with the new member at his side. No caption. Backstage, WWE didn't immediately release any statements. No follow-up interviews. No post-show explanations. Nothing. Just silence. And that silence was loud. Because the Shield wasn't supposed to come back. Not without Rollins. Not without Ambrose. Not without all of them. But Roman didn't care about rules. He cared about legacy. And on that night, on that stage, he rewrote his. This wasn't the return of a faction. It was the return of an idea. The Shield was never about 3 names. It was about fear. And fear was back. The moment Roman Reigns uttered the words "the Shield," the WWE Universe braced for 2 names. Seth Rollins. Dean Ambrose. It was instinct. Muscle memory. The Shield wasn't just a stable, it was a trio. A triangle. A trinity. For years, fans had watched these 3 dominate, fight, break apart, and tease reunions that never truly stuck. So when Roman brought up the past, every fan, every commentator, every wrestler knew exactly where their minds went. Rollins. Ambrose. Except neither of them showed up. And that's where the storm really began. Let's break it down. Roman said the name Shield, but there was no chair shot. No nostalgic reunion hug. No Shield-style beatdown to re-establish dominance. Instead, a stranger emerged, a silent figure walking through smoke in repurposed Shield gear. He didn't smile. He didn't perform for the crowd. He entered the ring like a ghost stepping back into a life he never lived. People were stunned. Because if it wasn't Rollins or Ambrose, then who was this? Let's address the most obvious names first. Seth Rollins was not in the building that night. WWE had announced he was off recovering from his recent match against Damian Priest, but that never stops a good swerve. Fans expected him to run out. To confront Roman. To complete the triangle once more. But Rollins didn't appear. He didn't even tweet. And that silence spoke volumes. Then there's Dean Ambrose, now known to the wrestling world as Jon Moxley. He's in AEW. That's the fact. But WWE fans are nothing if not hopeful. Every year around WrestleMania or SummerSlam, rumors swirl about a potential crossover. A contract loophole. A one-night deal. The idea of Moxley walking through the crowd again in a tactical vest is a dream some fans never let go of. But it wasn't Moxley either. This man was younger. Fresher. Unfamiliar. And the Shield wasn't reforming. It was mutating. That's what made this moment so much more than a surprise return. It was a narrative pivot. Roman wasn't reviving his past. He was rewriting it, and that required subtraction as much as addition. Let's talk about why not having Rollins or Ambrose matters. Because nostalgia is cheap. It gets cheers. It sells t-shirts. It fills arenas. But Roman didn't come back for nostalgia. He came back with a plan. By deliberately excluding Rollins and Ambrose, he made it clear, the new Shield isn't a reunion. It's an evolution. One man left to prove dominance. One new soldier drafted into his cause. And no space for dead weight or emotional baggage. This wasn't about brothers. It was about control. That's Roman's MO. He doesn't align with people. He uses them. The Bloodline wasn't a family. It was a hierarchy. The Usos were pawns. Solo was a weapon. Heyman was a mouthpiece. And now this mystery figure? A new enforcer. A fresh tool. A clean slate. No history. No betrayal scars. Just loyalty, manufactured or otherwise. So now the question wasn't just, who is this guy? It was, why him? As the days passed after SmackDown, theories exploded. Reddit threads hit 10,000 comments within 48 hours. Twitter ran polls with names from NXT, New Japan, even recently released WWE prospects. YouTubers slowed down entrance footage frame by frame, analyzing facial structure, gear choice, height comparison. Some of the most circulated theories included Jacob Fatu, a monstrous presence in MLW, part of the extended Anoa'i family. The idea of bringing him in as Roman's new muscle made immediate sense. But the man in the ring wasn't Jacob. Too lean. Too different. Braun Breaker, the son of Rick Steiner, Breaker had been tearing up NXT. But he was being groomed as a Raw main eventer, and his style didn't match the silent, calculated vibe of the Shield reveal. Solo Sikoa 2.0? Could WWE be double-swerving the audience? Was this someone connected to Solo, or even a darker version of Solo? Again, the body language didn't match. This wasn't someone who looked unhinged. This was someone who looked precise. A returning, rebranded star, some speculated it was a known wrestler repackaged, maybe a former NXT star like Tyler Bate or even someone like Mustafa Ali under a new persona. But the frame and energy didn't align. The most credible theory came from backstage insiders suggesting the figure was a relatively unknown recruit, a recent signee from the independent circuit who had been training at the Performance Center under complete secrecy. If that's true, this is a bold move. WWE isn't known for plugging unknowns directly into main event narratives. It takes years, sometimes decades, to earn that spot. But Roman Reigns isn't the system. He's a world unto himself. And if he vouches for someone, that's all the legitimacy they need. That raises another theory. What if this guy isn't a random recruit? What if he's someone Roman handpicked? Imagine Roman spending the last few months not rehabbing, not licking his wounds, but recruiting. Scouting. Building. While the world thought he was hiding, he was engineering the next phase of his empire. This new Shield isn't a creative decision. It's a calculated move. And Roman's fingerprints are all over it. Now let's talk about what Roman didn't say. He didn't name the new member. He didn't give a backstory. He didn't give us a reason. That wasn't an oversight. It was a play. A power move. Roman doesn't give the audience what they want. He gives them what they need to stay hooked. And by leaving the new member unnamed, he turned him into a question mark. A cliffhanger with legs. A living enigma. That silence became the loudest part of the entire segment. And it reframed the entire return. This wasn't about who's back. It was about what's next. Because the absence of Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose doesn't just define the moment, it defines Roman's message. He doesn't want them. He doesn't need them. He wants control. And he found someone who would give it to him. A blank slate. A new soldier. A symbol that the Shield isn't a memory. It's a blueprint. And now it belongs to Roman alone. When the lights went out on SmackDown and that figure walked out behind Roman Reigns, the WWE Universe collectively held its breath. A silhouette in black. No name. No words. Just a silent signal that something familiar had returned, but it wasn't what we remembered. For 48 hours, the question burned, who was this? On Monday morning, WWE dropped the bomb. A short video. Black screen. White text. Then a name, Xavier Kai. No fanfare. No lengthy explanation. Just a 30-second teaser that introduced the man Roman Reigns is now calling the future of this industry. And that's where everything changed. Because Xavier Kai isn't a household name. He's not a returning veteran, not a second-generation superstar, not a long-awaited NXT call-up. He's a weapon Roman Reigns pulled out of nowhere and put directly in the spotlight. So who is Xavier Kai? Let's get the basics out of the way. Xavier Kai, real name Kalen Xavier, is a 26-year-old former amateur wrestling standout from California. Built like a middleweight but moves like a sniper. He spent the last 3 years quietly dominating the independent circuit under the radar, working in front of small crowds and larger cameras, blending technical precision with bone-snapping explosiveness. Think Taz meets Malachi Black, calculated, vicious, but never theatrical. He wasn't part of WWE's usual developmental marketing pipeline. No flashy NXT vignettes. No social media teasers. No slow burn introduction. And that's what makes his debut under Roman Reigns so lethal. He didn't crawl his way in. He was brought in. By the one man who doesn't need permission from anyone in WWE. Let's talk about what we saw in his first appearance. Kai walked with controlled aggression. Not like someone who wanted attention, but like someone who was waiting for permission to strike. His presence was undeniable. Eyes locked forward. Body coiled like a loaded spring. And when he entered the ring, he didn't posture. He didn't play to the crowd. He aligned himself behind Roman. One step back. One step right. Like he'd rehearsed it 100 times. The Shield's old formation, reborn, but with a new order. Roman in front. Kai behind. A restructured legacy. It was a visual metaphor. Roman doesn't need partners. He needs weapons. And Xavier Kai was built to be just that. Let's break down the name, Xavier Kai. 2 syllables. Sharp. Easy to chant. It's not a coincidence. Xavier echoes savior, a subtle linguistic trick. Kai in Japanese means restoration or renewal. Roman didn't just pick a fighter, he picked a message. This isn't just about winning matches. It's about redefining power. So now that the name is out, what else do we know? According to internal WWE sources and verified leaks from the Performance Center, Xavier Kai was signed nearly 6 months ago. Quietly. No press release. No announcement. He was brought in under an experimental track. Codename, Project Silent War. The initiative was simple: train a select few talents completely outside the spotlight. No social media. No NXT. No brand build-up. No crowd exposure. Just skill development, character building, and tight coordination with top-tier veterans behind the scenes. Who ran the project? Reportedly, Paul Heyman. But the selection process? That was Roman. And Xavier Kai was the first, and possibly only, pick. This explains a lot. Kai's in-ring style, already being compared to early Shield-era Roman, is surgical. His striking is compact. His grappling is violent. He doesn't waste movement. And most importantly, he doesn't play to the audience. That's intentional. This isn't a showman. He's not looking for chance. He's looking for targets. Even his gear tells a story. The black-on-black tactical vest is a nod to the original Shield uniform, but there are upgrades. Thicker padding. Streamlined cuts. And a symbol on the shoulder, an X inside a circle. No initials. No flames. No skulls. It's not about persona. It's about purpose. And Kai's purpose is now fully tied to Roman Reigns. Let's talk about the alliance. What does Roman see in him? The answer is layered. On the surface, Xavier Kai offers Roman exactly what he needs: physical backup, psychological intimidation, and an element of unpredictability. The fans don't know Kai. The locker room doesn't know Kai. That makes him dangerous. Every feud, every match, every segment now carries the looming threat of someone who doesn't need a reason, just a signal. But beneath that, Roman sees more. He sees insurance, control, legacy protection. Roman's not dumb. He knows the bloodline is fractured. He knows his time at the top has limits. What better way to ensure he's never replaced than by handpicking his successor? That's the subtext. Xavier Kai isn't just Roman's bodyguard. He's Roman's project. A new weapon, a new generation, a new extension of the Reigns legacy, but without the baggage that came with the Usos, with Heyman, with even Seth and Dean. Kai is clean. Controlled. Moldable. For now. But that's what makes this dangerous, for everyone. Because while Kai may be loyal today, what happens when the future starts asking for control? What happens when the weapon starts thinking for himself? That question is already floating through WWE's ecosystem. On commentary. In promo teases. Even backstage interviews with stars like Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins have hinted at it. Roman doesn't recruit, Seth said in a Raw interview segment. He conditions. That line alone set Twitter ablaze. Is Xavier Kai a protege, or a prisoner? Let's look at the early evidence. In his first in-ring appearance, an unscheduled post-match beatdown of LA Knight, Kai showed something the original Shield members didn't show for months: total emotional control. He didn't scream. He didn't mock. He didn't overextend. He dismantled LA Knight piece by piece, then walked away without waiting for applause. Roman didn't say a word during the attack. He stood at the ramp, watching like a field commander inspecting his soldiers' work. And when Kai joined him, there was no celebration. Just a nod. The message: mission complete. Now, WWE is teasing their first official tag match. Roman Reigns and Xavier Kai vs. Kevin Owens and LA Knight, set for an upcoming premium live event. This match won't just be about the result. It will be about the chemistry. The visual. The message. Will Kai follow orders? Will Roman take the lead? Will there be friction? Or will this be the first chapter in a run that rivals what the original Shield created? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. Roman didn't come back to relive the past. He came back to redefine the future. And Xavier Kai is the future, with Roman's fingerprints all over him. The WWE Universe wanted the Shield. Roman gave them something else. Something colder. Something sharper. Something new. When WWE revealed the name Xavier Kai, the collective reaction from fans was a mix of excitement and confusion. Excitement because of what he represented: a new chapter, a new face, and a dangerous alliance with the most dominant superstar of the modern era. Confusion because almost no one saw it coming. This was not a recycled NXT talent. Not a crossover star. Not someone fans had been conditioned to expect. He was fresh. Untouched by WWE's overexposure. Unspoiled by the developmental to main roster marketing machine. So who is Xavier Kai? To understand that, we need to go before WWE. Before the cameras. Before the chants. This is the story of how a silent fighter became Roman Reigns' chosen weapon, and why his arrival may mark the beginning of an entirely new era. Xavier Kai was born Kalen Xavier in Stockton, California. Not a wrestling town. Not a place known for producing sports entertainers. Stockton is rough. Gritty. More real fights than scripted ones. And that's exactly where Kai came from. His background isn't like most WWE prospects. He didn't come up through collegiate wrestling. He wasn't a bodybuilder. He wasn't a reality show star or a second-generation legacy act. He came from the underground. Starting at 15, Kalen trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Greco-Roman wrestling. He competed in underground tournaments, often with no crowds, no prizes, just raw reputation. Coaches say he was quiet, never talked much, but always showed up. One coach described him as ice cold, like he didn't care if he won, as long as someone got hurt. By 19, he was competing semi-pro in hybrid martial arts tournaments on the West Coast. He wasn't a showman. He was a technician. No ring music. No flamboyance. Just someone who studied his opponent, struck with surgical precision, and walked away without fanfare. But what made him stand out wasn't just his skill. It was his mindset. Most fighters are emotional. They feed off adrenaline. They rage, scream, posture. Kai was the opposite. He was still. Always still. Interview footage from early matches shows a young man staring into space before bouts, barely blinking, answering questions with short phrases: focus. Pressure. Stay on the ribs. That was it. He didn't smile. He didn't sell himself. He executed. The story of how he got into WWE starts in a way few do: he never applied. He was spotted. According to reports, Kai was recommended to WWE by a high-level MMA coach who had previously trained with Performance Center staff. The recommendation was unusual: you're not going to get a mic guy. You're going to get a killer. At first, WWE reportedly passed. Too quiet. Too unpredictable. But someone else saw potential: Paul Heyman. It's no coincidence that Heyman has spent most of his recent WWE tenure around Roman Reigns. When Heyman heard about Kai, he watched fight tapes, then brought them to Roman personally. And Roman saw what he wanted. Control. Discipline. Zero ego. Someone who could be programmed, sculpted. A soldier without history. Within weeks, WWE brought Kai into a private tryout, off the books. No other prospects. Just him. Witnesses say the session lasted 45 minutes and ended with WWE medical staff treating the trainers. From there, the recruitment was surgical. No NXT. No press. Kai was enrolled in a shadow training program referred to internally as Layer Zero. A prep system designed for targeted talent, kept away from cameras, to be deployed when and where creatives saw fit. But let's be honest. This wasn't creative's project. It was Roman's. Insiders say Roman checked in weekly. Not just for footage. For philosophy. For alignment. He wasn't training a wrestler. He was building a philosophy extension. And Kai absorbed it all. Xavier Kai's style is rooted in minimalism. He doesn't overuse motion. He doesn't go for high spots. His movements are conservative but explosive. A headlock isn't just a hold, it's a control strategy. A strike isn't just a move, it's an exclamation. In early sparring footage, leaked but since taken down, Kai is seen repeating the same 3-sequence combo for 12 minutes straight. Not practicing new moves. Perfecting a system. That's Roman Reigns' energy in a nutshell. Efficiency. Dominance. Psychology. When Kai speaks, it's even more revealing. In a backstage interview that leaked after SmackDown, his only quote was, "Roman speaks. I follow. That's it. No backstory. No sob story. Just alignment." This is the anti-hero WWE didn't know it needed. In the ring, Xavier Kai shows traits of hybrid disciplines: judo-level balance, BJJ control, boxing precision, and old-school ring awareness. He doesn't play to the crowd. He plays to the opening. His debut match, a non-televised bout taped for dark match testing, featured no music, no entrance video. He walked straight to the ring, eyes down, arms loose. His opponent was a seasoned NXT veteran. Kai ended the match in 4 minutes with a hybrid rear naked choke suplex finisher that left the trainer stunned. His in-ring IQ is high. He doesn't repeat mistakes. He adapts. That's exactly what Roman needs. He doesn't want a hype man. He wants a firewall. And Kai is that. Roman Reigns has always had a problem: the people around him crack. The Usos betrayed him. Solo got restless. Even Paul Heyman looked hesitant when pressure rose. But Xavier Kai? He has no history. No ego. No outside alliances. He doesn't want the spotlight. He wants the mission. And that makes him dangerous. Because the most unpredictable person in the room is the one with no personal ambition. That's what Kai represents: raw power, uncorrupted. Roman doesn't want family anymore. He wants control. And Xavier Kai gives him that, until he doesn't. Foreshadowing the break? Already, there are hints. WWE is slowly planting seeds. A lingering look after a match. A moment where Kai steps slightly ahead of Roman before correcting. Tiny cracks. Because what happens when Kai starts thinking for himself? When the Shield 2.0 becomes bigger than Roman? That's the long play. But for now, Kai is silent. Focused. Tactical. Exactly what Roman needs. And the scariest thing about all of it? We've only seen a glimpse. It didn't take long. Less than 24 hours after Roman Reigns returned to SmackDown and introduced Xavier Kai as the new face of a reformed Shield, the shockwaves started hitting. Not just from fans. From inside the business. From the locker room. From social media. And most notably, from the two names most closely tied to the Shield's legacy. Seth Rollins. Jon Moxley. You could almost hear the pulse quicken across wrestling podcasts, YouTube commentary channels, and backstage news wires. Roman didn't just invoke a name from the past. He rewrote its rules, live on air, without involving the two men who helped him build it. And they noticed. Let's start with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has never been shy about his emotions. He's loud. Expressive. Whether in character or out, he wears his thoughts like a second entrance jacket. And when word broke that Roman had brought back the Shield without him, it didn't take long for him to respond. 2 hours after SmackDown ended, Rollins posted a single line on X: no tags. No emojis. No pictures. But fans immediately knew what it meant. Within minutes, Seth and Shield were trending worldwide. Wrestling reporters and insiders started reaching out. Some sources claimed Seth had no prior knowledge of Roman's plan. Others said he was aware of Xavier Kai's introduction in theory, but not the Shield branding. That detail, apparently, was kept locked until airtime. The following Monday on Raw, Rollins addressed it in the ring. He didn't hold back. I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get a warning. Hell, I didn't even get a text. 1 minute I'm nursing busted ribs from the best damn match of my life, and the next thing I know, Roman Reigns is walking out on SmackDown talking about finishing what we started. He paused, letting the boos and cheers mix. You didn't finish anything, Roman. You hijacked it. Then he pointed to the camera. That's not the Shield. That's a cosplay version of your ego. Rollins' promo cut deep, and fans felt it. Some praised him for defending the Shield's legacy. Others accused him of being jealous. But one thing was clear: WWE was letting this tension live. It wasn't being hidden. It was being spotlighted. Why? Because this conflict is money. Seth versus Roman isn't new, but this version of it? Legacy versus revisionism? The last original member standing against the man rewriting history? It's compelling. It's real. And that brings us to the third member of the original Shield. Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley isn't in WWE anymore. But that doesn't mean he's quiet. In fact, Moxley's entire identity post-WWE has been about not playing by the rules. He's real. Raw. Unfiltered. And if there's anyone who was going to call out Roman's Shield reboot without corporate censorship, it was him. 3 days after Roman's return, Moxley appeared on a wrestling podcast to promote an upcoming AEW event. The host, like every fan watching, had to ask, "What did you think about Roman bringing back the Shield?" Moxley smirked. Then leaned in. "That thing's already dead to me, man." The host laughed. Moxley didn't. "Look, I lived that. I bled for that. I damn near broke my back in that ring for 2 guys I called my brothers. But that was a long time ago. We closed that chapter. Then burned the book." Then he added something telling. "If Roman wants to dig up the corpse and slap some new name on it, that's his business. But don't pretend it's the same story." Fans jumped on it instantly. Some read the statement as bitterness. Others saw it as a sign of respect, that Moxley didn't want to dilute the Shield name with half-baked nostalgia. But insiders said Moxley's words weren't about ego. They were about principle. Moxley has always distanced himself from nostalgia. From fan service. He doesn't do reunions. He doesn't do forced sentiment. So Roman resurrecting the Shield without him? In his mind, that's not continuation. That's betrayal. And though Moxley can't appear in WWE under current AEW contracts, the company is smart enough to know this buzz matters. WWE didn't respond directly, but they did lean in. On SmackDown the following week, Roman stood in the ring while the crowd chanted "Where's Seth?" and Moxley. He smiled. Then said, "They had their chance. I gave them the story. They walked away. I finished it." It wasn't subtle. And that's the point. Outside the original Shield members, the rest of the WWE locker room has been cautious. Some stars went cryptic. LA Knight, who got attacked by Xavier Kai the week after Roman's return, posted a photo of a chessboard with the caption, "He's making moves." But he's not the only one playing. Cody Rhodes posted a throwback image of his first post-Shield feud, with the caption, "History repeats itself. Unless you're the one writing it." Other stars, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, addressed the Shield reboot in interviews more directly. Owens, "It's not the same. It's not a brotherhood. It's a power play." Zayn, "Roman doesn't bring people close. He puts them under his boot." Backstage, reports surfaced that younger talent were watching the Kai situation closely. Some feel excited, a new guy getting a push, breaking the usual hierarchy. Others feel tension. Worried this means WWE is shifting back toward Roman-centric programming after finally moving beyond the Bloodline arc. But perhaps the most intriguing insight came from an unexpected source. Paul Heyman. In a rare sit-down interview, half in character, half not, Heyman was asked about Roman and the new Shield. His answer? Roman Reigns doesn't act. He orchestrates. You think this is a return? This is a reclamation. The Shield was the first layer. The Bloodline was the second. Now we're entering the third phase. And only the wise will survive it. That quote alone sparked a wave of theory videos. What is the third phase? Is Roman going to build a full stable around Kai? Is this the beginning of a Roman Reigns empire? Are we looking at the end of the Bloodline and the rise of something even more controlled, more ruthless? The WWE universe is divided and energized. Some fans love the twist. They see it as Roman reclaiming his narrative after Cody's WrestleMania win. They see Xavier Kai as fresh blood, something raw and real in a landscape of polished personas. Others feel betrayed. They believe the Shield was sacred. That without Rollins and Moxley, it's just branding. Just smoke and mirrors. But no matter where fans stand, they're watching. WWE Shop released a limited Shield Reborn t-shirt within 48 hours. It sold out in 6. Reddit threads analyzing Xavier Kai's gear, training history, and potential future hit record engagement. YouTube reactions racked up millions of views in days. And the WWE ratings? They spiked. Roman's return segment brought in the highest quarter hour of SmackDown in over a year. Whether fans love it or hate it, one thing is clear. They're invested. Because this isn't just about a return. It's about legacy, ownership, power. And the two men who helped build Roman's foundation, Seth and Moxley, have now become obstacles to his version of the truth. Roman Reigns has planted a new flag. And whether Rollins, Moxley, or anyone else likes it, it's already flying.